So, um, it seems entirely justified to suppose that each form and model of amphora should correspond to a specific product. The general shape might advertise the contents. Nevertheless, it seems now that it's not the case for some types of amphorae, and the situation is not that simple. We will see what questions arise for Egyptian production, but one should already note that the scientific determination of contents started very late in Egypt compared to research in this field carried out in Western Europe. The ban on exporting samples constitutes the main cause for this delay. Moreover, interest in this kind of study is also very recent. It is now, however, possible to conduct some scientific analysis in the archaeometry department of the French Institute in Cairo and in the Michel Wuttmann laboratory of the French Archaeological Center in Alexandria. I will begin my report with a short presentation of Egyptian amphorae, and then I will go on with the visual examination of the residue still present in amphorae, with the scientific analysis, and with a general overview of the ancient sources. I would also apologize because I prepare a short text in order to have more time to discuss about Egyptian contents. So archaeological research undertaken in the past 2 decades in Egypt has revealed several important groups of amphorae, and this has made possible the establishing of a new typological and chronological classification of Egyptian amphorae. From the end of the Hellenistic time and the beginning of the Roman period, Egyptian amphorae types gradually differ from Asian and Greek models. A new shape, well known as bitronconical amphorae, appears. It corresponds to the third number to the classification established by Jean-Yves Empereur and to the Hermopolite A amphorae according to the classification made by Donald Bailey of Egyptian amphorae found in El Hashmonain in Middle Egypt. The principal morphological characteristic of these amphorae are a belly with 2 bulges separated by a central depression and a tall cylindrical neck. The handles are fixed on the upper part of the neck, under or in contact with the lip. Nevertheless, several regional alternatives are attested as shown by this picture. For Egyptian 4 are the local imitation of Dressel 2-4 amphorae produced all around the Mediterranean. Slightly different from the original ones, for Egyptian 4 is characterized by its tall and slim shape, its carinated shoulder, and its beefy handle. This amphorae was produced almost exclusively in the workshop located on the southern shore of the Lake Mariut, of the Mariut Lake, between the 1st and the 3rd century AD. During late Antiquity and the beginning of the Arab period, 4 large groups of containers were produced in Egypt. The late Amphora Egyptian 3 bitronconical fit into a typological and chronological continuity of the Amphora Egyptian 3 produced during the Roman period, and more exactly, the container created from alluvial or Nile clay in production site located in the Delta, the Fayoum, and along the Nile Valley in Middle Egypt. During the 7th and the beginning of the 8th centuries, the form evolved, becoming distinctly longer and slimmer. The general denomination for Egyptian 5-6 refers to spherical and ovoid containers. In Egypt, these amphorae are clearly imitation of the Levantine product, since we do not find any original prototype. 2 principal forms have been recognized. The first one has a spherical belly and a rounded base without foot. Small handles are affixed in the top of the belly. The second corresponds to a medium-sized amphorae with a pear-shaped or cylindrical pear-shaped belly or ovoid belly. Both of these forms were made using either a mareotid or a Nile clay. On the site of the Kelia, the container made from chalky clay appeared toward the first quarter of the 7th century, while those of alluvial clay appear slightly later, toward the middle of the 7th century. The Amphora Egyptian 7, generally designated by the term Late Roman Amphora 7, are the most widely spread and distributed wine containers throughout all Egyptian territory during late Antiquity and the 1st century of the Arab period. The Amphora Egyptian 7 type is a slender amphora of a modest capacity, 6 to 7 liters or slightly more, and made of a brown Nile clay. At the same time, this family contains many variants, a fact that can be explained by the large number of workshops that could have manufactured this amphora in Middle Egypt, the long chronology that stretches from the second half of the 4th century to the 10th, 11th centuries, and probably to the importance given to the capacity instead of the shape, The fourth group, named Amphora Egyptian 8, comprised imitation of late Roman Amphora 1, 2, and 13. Mainly dated from the 7th and probably the 8th centuries, these amphorae were manufactured in the Delta, in Sinai, and probably also in Middle Egypt. So now, the main residue found inside Egyptian amphorae are the following. First, a dark vitreous residue of pitch covering the inside of the container. It was observed for all the type of Roman and late Roman amphorae, but it was not systematically inside. Or as a crust on the bottom, mainly observed for late Amphora Egyptian 3, Amphora Egyptian 7, both Amphora Egyptian 5, 6, made of Nile and Mareotic clay, and Amphora Egyptian 8. This residue was primarily noticed on the pottery of Bawit in Middle Egypt, Bawit which is located in an arid context where conservation conditions are optimal. Second, fish-based product, which could reflect a primary or a reuse. At Bawit, within a context from the middle and the second half of the 7th century, almost all the Amphora Egyptian 7 bear traces of pitch and only occasionally old fish remains, probably from Salsamenta, as the study of Wim van Neer shows us. These remains can be observed in Amphora Egyptian 7 as in late Roman 5-6 of a Levantine manufacture. With this in mind, one should note the discovery of the Tantura F. shipwreck in the Bay of Dor off the Israeli coast, not far from Haifa. It was a small vessel with a cargo principally composed of alluvial clay Amphora Egyptian 5-6, about 20, and dated to between the mid-7th century and the 8th century. These amphorae bore traces of resin and contain small tilapia fish bone, evidence that they held something other than wine. Evidence of fish bone is also attested in some late Amphora Egyptian 3 found in the Kelia, and also in Amphora Egyptian 5-6 in Nile clay found in Fostat. In Egypt, the hypothesis of a wine content is usually suggested by the presence of pitch or resin and reinforced by the evidence of a hole perforated with a drill through the neck or the shoulder of the container after its firing. It is said that this hole avoids the jar exploding from the pressure of gases resulting from fermentation. However, a second assumption has been put forward. This hole could also be used to check the wine quality before sale. It avoids the need to open the amphora or remove the stopper. It could also explain why all amphorae are not systematically drilled. Sometimes this hole could be stopped up by a twig, a pitch, or gum, as observed in Bawit and in Fostat. Concerning chemical analysis, so it is only in the past 15 years or less that a few scientific analyses have been performed on organic residue discovered inside ceramic, and more particular inside Roman and late Roman amphorae. Usually, these analyses have been carried out by gas chromatography coupled with mass spectrometry. As regards the pre-dynastic and the pharaonic period, one can mention the research undertaken by Gouache Janet and unfortunately by Mike Govern, for which the results show that amphorae were not coated, but could contain some herbs and terebinthine resin as additive. As for Roman, late Roman and the beginning of the Arab period, very few analyses were being carried out. If I am correct, there are just 3, for which I will just give you a brief overview of the main result, and we can discuss after the result. The first study was, unfortunately, performed by Patrick McGovern on a late Roman Amphora 7 dated to the 4th century and recovered from a tomb at Gebel Ada in Lower Nubia in southern Egypt. The residue was analyzed first in 1990 and then again in 2008. The results show evidence of tartaric acid, which suggests to the author a wine content, and of Rosmarinus officinalis, rosemary. The inside was coated by a tar obtained by heating pine resin. The second study was performed by a team from the Dipartimento di Chimica e Chimica Industriale of the University of Pisa, on a group of 8 amphora Egyptian free, made of nice silt and found in Medinet Madi in the Fayoum. The results show the use of a pine resin originating, according to the author, from the Eastern Mediterranean, and they say that perhaps from Aleppo. Analysis of the black and vitreous aggregate at the bottom of late Roman amphora 7 found in Fustat in southern Cairo attest also the use of a vegetal resin. Again, according to the author, the resin was collected from conifers originating from the Eastern Mediterranean, Levant, Anatolia, or Aegean coast. It is noteworthy that one amphora still contains a vegetal stem embedded in the resin with characteristic structure of a small branch of wine, Vitis species. One should also note that another amphora was coated with resin bearing traces of fatty acid, more especially stearic acid and palmitic acid, from which the author suggests a reuse of the jar with an oil content. Egypt, as we know, Egypt lacks the timber resource necessary to produce vegetal and mineral pitch, and thus it was probably imported, and perhaps from Asia Minor and the Levant, as shown, but we have to discuss, by the result of the analysis, and probably also by the papyri. In connection, I will briefly mention the discovery on the site of Academia, an amphora production site located on the southern shore of the Lake Mariut, about 40 kilometers west of Alexandria, where some Palestinian amphorae were recovered still containing a large quantity of pitch inside. Pitch probably used to coat Egyptian amphorae produced locally, but Jean-Yves will speak about it after. So as regard to these very few analyses and the poor result, and we have to go on with the ancient sources. So during the Roman period, ancient sources, papyri, dipinti, and ostraca clearly indicate that amphorae were intended to hold mainly wine, but not exclusively. As an example, the wine produced in the Mareotid were reputed and well appreciated, in particular at Roman table. According to Strabo, good wine also is produced here and in such quantity that the Mareotic wine is racked in order that it may be kept to be old. This declaration is, however, countered by Pliny, Juvenal, and Martial, who testify that the best vinegar was that of Alexandria, although it is made from a wine of a poor quality. Another example is a papyrus dated the 5 September 243 and AD and found in oxy wrinkles. It is a contract between a landowner and a potter. The potter will have to provide a number of jars according to the quantity of wine usually produced by the vineyard. The workshop contained all the necessary equipment needed for manufacturing pottery: storeroom, kiln, wells, and sometimes, according to another papyrus, an oven used for the preparation of pitch. It suggests us that the pitch was obtained by strong heating of the pine wood and probably made by the potter or his assistant. According to papyrological evidence, Egypt produced several kinds of oil during Greco-Roman period: olive oil, castor oil, sesame oil, and safflower oils. But as far as I know, we don't know in which container it was stored and distributed. Moreover, nevertheless, we know that oil was also stored in skin. This was still the case during the Fatimid period, as evidenced in the Cairo Geniza, in which it is mentioned the transport of 5,000 olive oil skins from Tunisia to Alexandria in 1065. However, written sources also attest in a more anecdotal manner to the packaging of vinegar, fish, and salted pork, fish sauce, olive, fruit, cheese, water. One should note that salted pork is attested both by written sources and by archaeological evidence. In fact, on the site of Maximianon, in the eastern desert, one amphora bottom still contains the mandible of a pig set in a block of salt. To conclude, first I would like to underline that I'm not a chemist, physicist or specialist of ancient source. In this short report, I simply hope to present the state of research and to show how it is difficult for amphorologists working in Egyptian context to identify the content of amphorae. I also wanted to show you the wealth of resource that Egypt has and how progress in this research could be made by the way of a multidisciplinary study. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Delphine Dixneuf, for this nice and short presentation on Egyptian amphora. Jean-Yves Empereur is going to present some discussion points, and then I understand that also Ahmed Senon is going to point out some discussion points. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and thank you first to Dario for this excellent conference, excellent organization, to his assistants also for everything. And so I shall give another point of view around the same topic of the Egyptian amphora. First, I would like to abord the question of the salt fish in Egyptian amphora. You spoke about one shipwreck found near Israel with late Roman amphora, but I think it's perhaps the only example we have about that, so it would be perhaps difficult to make a generalization. As you see here in this text, in the parallel life, the life of Antony, Plutarch mentions that Mark Antony wanted to fish to angle in Alexandria, and Cleopatra went to him and put a smoked fish in his hook. Fish, he says, coming from Black Sea. So, were there many saltfish amphorae and saltfish production in Egypt? We don't know, but we know that they imported the best ones, at least, from abroad. So we have no evidence for this saltfish amphorae. I'm sorry for the people working on this topic, but we have a lot of information about the mainly the wine amphorae. We have mainly information coming from archaeological evidence, but also from papyri. Papyri speak a lot about amphorae, with many terms, amphorae, but also kados, cnidia, according to the periods, from the Hellenistic period until the Byzantine one. And so we would need a special, and I speak especially to Jean-Luc, we would need a special study about these terms and about the contents we are also mentioned in the papyri of these different amphorae. For instance, in the late Roman period and Byzantine period, you have mention of cnidia, cnidiakia, and so on. So it means amphora from Cnidos, but with it becomes a generic term and with different contents. So we have also the prices, of course, of these amphorae, or empty or full with contents. And so this from the Hellenistic period. For instance, in the archives of Zinu and Fayum, we have the prices of empty amphorae, and they are more or less the same. So for new amphorae, just newly made by the potter, and reuse amphorae. Because they need many amphorae, thousands amphorae, because they put the fresh juice of the wine from the vat into not dolia, Itaria, Pitoi, but directly in Amphora. And so we have papyri by Zeno saying that he ordered to gather around the vat about 3,200 amphorae. So you can see the collection of amphorae, the gathering of amphorae they have to manage each time there is the wine production. And so they give us also and this is interesting in the point of view of the reuse, they say they can recognize the amphorae by their shapes. And so in this Zeno's papyrus, they can say, we have gathered around the vat Thebaya, Cnidia, Colophonia, from colophon, Corecisciotica, from modern Alania, and also Coriaca, Coa, Lesbia, Lefcadia, Milesia, Paria, Paphia, Rhodia, Samia, Chia, etc. So even there are some names of amphorae we don't know, we couldn't recognize until now. And so these amphorae were pitched, as you said, by the potter. It was in the contract of the potter who had to not only to build the vase, but also to pitch the inner walls of the amphora. And so this is very interesting because it means that they reuse in a huge scale thousands and thousands of amphorae. And so we can ask ourselves if a buyer of a Rhodian amphora bought such wine, he understood immediately that it was imported wine or local one. What was the same price, same taste? No, but this is a question we have no answer. We have no papyrus about that. You have to underline that the prices of these reused amphorae are more or less the same in Greece. For instance, as I mentioned 2 days ago, we have the mention of the selling of Cnidiaca amphorae after the banquet of the Poseideia, of the feast in the honor of Poseidon in the island of Delos in 180 before Christ. And so they sell, 47 Cnidiaca amphorae, and they cost 7 drachmas. So it means it's about 1.5 obol, the amphora, which is more or less the same price at the same time in Egypt. I shall show you some slides now of archaeological evidence. I have little time, so it's why we cannot go deeper in the mentions of the amphorae and their contents in the papyrus, but I shall show you some commodities which were not transported in amphorae. So it's also another side of the picture, another point of view. We have in shipwrecks many attestations of fruits, stones, of apricots, plums, peaches, olives, gathered by hundreds underwater in Alexandria, in front of the modern Eastern Harbor. And the paleobotanists could say that some of these species were coming from the island of Rhodos, which was the last stop of the ship. And so this was traveling not in amphorae. They were found among 495 Lambolia II amphorae, but in sacks, in bulk. So we have not to forget this, even if some more evidence comes from another kind of shipwreck, shipwreck with more than 100 small boats 100 radian amphorae, and you can see this classical radian amphorae stand, and inside it was full of pine cones. This kind of fruit doesn't grow in Egypt, and so they imported them from Rhodes or for Anatolia or from the Greek islands. So we shall give now some explanation on one of our recent excavations, as say Delphine, 50 kilometers southwest of Alexandria. You have Alexandria here, and we shall go in this region. So in Academia, southern shore of the Marriott Lake, and there, so among many dumps of amphorae, very huge hills, sometimes more than 20 meters high. So we have an excavation showing that there were production of amphorae with very huge kilns. They are about 12 meters diameter, and so we could reconstruct that they could fire at least 400 amphorae together. So, and there are several kinds here. We could excavate 2, but we know that there are more. And I shall leave the room to our friend Khan, who is studying this late Roman IV Gaza type amphorae.
Okay.
Okay.
Some more discussion from Ahmed Senol, who is going to point.
Yes. So the Academia Amphora workshop excavations located at the south of Alexandria on the border of Lake Maritime have brought to light new archaeological evidence concerning amphora production techniques during the early imperial period in Egypt. The ongoing excavations aim to answer questions regarding such things as productive capacity and organization of the production area during the production run in these workshops. We have identified more than 2,000 Egyptian type 3 and more than 3,000 type 4 number of estimated amphora, which permit us to present detailed typologies of the vases produced in these workshops. However, the existence of 22 LR4 type Gazan amphora in the strata of refuse material needs a plausible explanation. If these amphorae were not produced in academia workshops, what were they being used for in the production area? Traces of carbonized residues of resin recognized inside the bottom parts of some late Roman IV amphorae provide clues for a satisfactory explanation to the usage of these amphorae. Resin has been used intensely for various purposes since the Neolithic period, and as everybody in this Congress knows that this product has been an important commercial commodity since Antiquity. The importation of resin was also an important phenomenon, as many variations of this product were used for medical and cosmetic purposes in Egypt. Greeks added resin to their wine because of its antibacterial feature, and according to the ancient authors, it was used both for ensuring the impermeability of the amphorae and mending jars. The Xenon archives also attest the utilization of pitch for insulating jars, while we have more archaeological evidence of the continuance of this practice in Egypt into the late Antiquity. The intensive usage of resin to line Roman commercial amphora in the imperial period has been proven by the analysis of the residues on some amphora shards. The prototypes, or so-called Form 1 of LR4 amphorae, have been recorded in the archaeological strata dating to the 1st century AD in Rome, Alexandria, Ashdod, and Pelusium. Mayarek noticed the abundance of this particular form in layers dating to the 1st century AD in Komel Dikka at Alexandria. The commercial connection between the Gazan region and Alexandria is also confirmed by archaeological evidence gathered from excavations run by the several lakes in Alexandria. Results from the Academia Amphora workshop excavations allow us to present two subtypes of Form 1 of the late Roman 4 amphora used in the workshop area during the 2nd century AD. The first group of LR4 amphorae, considered as type 1A, with high rounded rims, cylindrical, broad tapering bodies with wide grooved bottoms, and strap-shaped handles on grooved shoulders, have been found with nearly complete AE4 amphorae dating to the 2nd century AD. This type has also been found with AEC, AE3C and AE4 amphorae dating to the second half of the 2nd century AD. This form has a characteristic reddish band decoration on the lower part of, and sometimes on the shoulder. Another variant of the LR4 Form 1 amphora found in academic excavations, named as type 1B, also has high rounded rims and grooved wide shoulders. These amphorae are the most widely used variant of LR4 type in academia workshops, and mostly found in the layers dating to the 2nd century AD. Similar LR4 amphora found in Butto in sector P1 are also dated to the second half of the 2nd century AD. Another group of LR4 amphorae that we consider as a transition form of Mayaric 1 to 2 was found also with a 3 and 4 type local amphorae in the workshop waste product layers. This form also has high rounded and sometimes inverted rims and ear-front oval section broad handles on the shoulder. They bear a distinctive groove between the neck and the shoulder, which is more conical than the previous form, as they are also have cylindrical bodies, tapering with grooved bottom. Their bodies have narrower forms than seen in Form 2 of late Roman 4 amphora. I think it's enough for the typology. And early Gazan amphorae are the only imported containers, except for one residual LR3 to be found in the Academia Amphora workshop excavations. This can be considered as a sign of the beginning of trading Gazan goods to Alexandria in the early imperial period. We know, of course, that later on from the 4th century AD, Gazan wine reached Alexandria in large quantities. Therefore, in addition to the well-known Gazan wine carried in LR4 amphorae, we can add resin as another important product in the repertory of goods carried in these containers. In light of the above, we should extend our estimations of the scale of Gazan trade during the early years of the Roman Empire. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the three of you for your, also for keeping time quite short. We are late, but we also would like to have some discussion on these points. So I don't know who wants to, Dario can start with the discussion.
So thank you very much for this so very interesting and clear presentation. I think that you have some of the biggest kilns in the Mediterranean, because at least in our region, the biggest ones are 6 meters diameter. So this is incredible. And my question is related to the so-called fermentation holes in Egyptian amphora, which are pre-firing, right? So this post-firing. So this is, as I have written your book and some papers, it seems characteristic of Egyptian amphora, because if you take a wide look in the other provinces, it is not. Maybe you can find one, but these are occasional. So my question is it related to the sort of wine that they put inside the amphora, or it has to be with another technological aspects? So why don't we have similar fermentation holes in other wine amphora in other provinces?
Alors, concerning the fermentation oil, enfin the oil, we are not sure because Egyptian amphorae are not systematically drilled. So it's why we have two hypotheses. The first one concerning the fermentation, because we have a very specialized way of fermentation in Egypt. As Jean-Yves said, we didn't have any dolia, and the wine after is put inside the amphora for to finish the fermentation,
Inside
the
that.
processes.
Okay.
But all the amphora are not systematically drilled. It's why there are another hypothesis would suggest that it's just to test the quality of the wine. But I think that we didn't. I mean, we cannot say exactly what it is for. I mean, Jean-Yves, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a topic of discussion still. It's related to fermentation, of course, because they put a small stopper of wood, of twigs inside the hole to be able to remove it when necessary and to avoid the explosion of the amphora. So if there are no such holes for certain of them, I think it depends also of the heat of the circumstances when the wine is poured into the amphora, if it's very hot or not, and so they can modulate the use of these holes or not. But there are so many that it's a very curious habit of Egypt, and you have not this in Northern Africa, so it's very strange. It's only in Egypt we have that. Sorry? But where? Palestine, yeah, yes. Yes, I thought the region of Egypt, not in Northern Africa, in Maghreb. But, sorry. Yes.
Southern Phoenician, I would call it really, Beirut and down into what is now Israel.
But we can hypothesis for the one which are not drilled, that the stopper was drilled. I mean, it's possible. I found one in Coptos.
I agree on the purpose anyway.
I'm very interested in this late Roman for maybe we should call it Gaza, because if we say late Roman, will send us to 4th, 5th century, 6th century. So maybe we have to change it. Regarding the pitch or the tar which is inside, I want to tell you that I found that Pompeiopolis in northern Anatolia also late Roman, real late Roman Gaza amphora with this type of shining pitch inside tar, and maybe this we can collaborate and see, maybe can analyze together the North Pontic area, the tiniest region. I'll show you later. Exported this kind of tar. It's written, we have in the Pinti NAFTA written on this amphora, and it was a trade in this kind of product. Maybe the Gaza trader imported from the Black Sea and commercialized in Egypt or any other area. We have to it's a piste, you know. Have to check and see if you can connect it or not.
I think there's another effort to explain the practice of hulling Palestinian amphoras. If you look in the Caesarea reports, David, whose last name I'm forgetting, an Israeli scholar, the one who did the cookwares from Tel Hanania, someone can help me with his name, he did experiments where he argued that the purpose that they might drill a hole in the stopper and a hole in the shoulder in the same way that today if you have a can of fruit juice, you make 2 holes in the top so that the air can come in through one hole and the liquid can exit through the other. So he argues that maybe they drilled a hole through the stopper, made a hole in the shoulder, and then emptied the amphora through the hole in the shoulder, and that allowed air to come in through the top. And he did experiments. He took actual examples of the, what, I guess of the LR4 and 5.6, I can't remember, and stoppered them and did experiments to see how the liquid exited, and he concluded that that was a reasonable explanation. Whether or not it's convincing, I don't know, but that also is in the literature.
Actually, I think I've seen someone do this, is to not take the lid off and be able to serve directly from the amphora with the through the hole. It actually works. It does. Well, it means that you wouldn't actually have to take the, you wouldn't have to unseal the amphora. I've seen that in Beirut.
Maybe it could also, I don't know, maybe it could also depend of the material used to stop the amphora. For example, late Roman amphora Egyptian are 7 are stopped up with mud stopper, and maybe it's not, it's porous. I mean, so I don't know.
For the fermentation of the wine, I don't know, I think that probably we have to look on this system of fermenture, like of the cork, because like in the Laetanian amphoras, they have found a particular kind of system like cork with a true, a hole, sorry, with a hole, and probably they think that they put something to permit to the wine to continue the fermentation. In the Dolia transportation, we have the same true, the same holes in the big cap of Dolia, and in the Pisa ship wreck site, they have found an amphora that they have classified as Capitan 1 with a very particular kind of fermeture with ropes and with clothes, and they say that they have another little ropes who permit something like a champagne amphora. So probably, I don't know if you have some trace of this particular kind of fermeture to avoid that exploded, the amphora exploded.
In fact, the fermentation was not made in the amphora, but in the vat, where they put some cloth above the vat. We have the traces of the holes for the beams. We have some traces of wood even. And so the fermentation was made during 2 or 3 days in the vat. And it's only after that they put this fermented new wine in the amphora. And so they, for me, they made this hole to avoid the restarting of the fermentation inside the amphora. Because of the heat, it was very, so the September in Egypt or even August is very hot season, and so it's not convenient to make wine.
It's also interesting to have in mind that some of Hercula in clay are whole in the middle, And there is another proposal, which is that they drill them to put a rope inside so that you can knot it and help when opening.
Okay. I think we can go on discussing in the coffee break. Also maybe some issues from the African area that has been cut in the middle of long discussions. And thank you very much to everybody, to all of you. And we go on after the coffee with the Eastern Amphora.